I'm Karen Hurt, and I'm here with our next edition of Asking for a Friend Live. And I am absolutely delighted today to bring on Virg Palumbo. He is a president at Kforce, and he's one of my favorite leaders at one of my favorite clients. So it's just an absolute delight to have him here. And we're going to be talking about how do you build a strong operating cadence to lead your team toward high performance? So Virg, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Karen. Honored to be here, and thanks for all those that are listening.
Yeah, so we have a great show planned. I encourage you, please add your questions, your friends' questions to the chat, and we'll make sure we get to those towards the end of the show today. And, I have to, just before we start, Virg, I have to say, I remember one of the very first conversations we had, and we're talking about, minding the MIT, the most important thing. And you said, here, Karen, take a look at my calendar. What advice do you have for how I can really focus on my operating cadence? And I looked at your calendar and I was like, I got nothing. Like, can you come please organize our company? This is so organized. Over so many years, in my role at Verizon, in my role working with companies around the world, I can say I have never seen someone with such a strong system of everything lined up and an organized cadence. And I know that's the Marine in you that got that started. So just for those of us listening, those of you listening, he's living this. And what I also loved is he sent a note out to his team this morning and said, hey, if you want to join us, that's great. And if I say anything that you're not feeling that I'm actually doing, please let me know, which I thought that was a beautiful example of leadership, right, as well. So Virg, that's enough of me. Let's go to you. I want to ask you, when we talk about what is an operating cadence, I thought when we put the advertisement out, people might be like, what are you even talking about? So how would you define an operating cadence?
Well, thank you, Karen, for the kind words, and it's very blessed to have a great relationship with you. So thank you. I think when you start looking at a leader, he or she has three obligations. One is to protect the team. The second is to provide direction, and then order. And there's studies on that. And so when you look at an operating cadence, it provides direction and order. So what is it? Generally speaking, it's channeling the organizational energy that supports the business and support your team. And so when you look at it, you're trying to create positive outcomes where the business is thriving, and also every teammate feels valued, accepted, understood, loved, and trusted. And so if you have a great structure, at least the narrative I have in my head is there are good habits. There's empowerment to make decentralized decisions. You have positive outcomes with your business and productivity, lower core turnover, higher customer satisfaction. And there was a study recently done that 75% of CEOs share two characteristics, and that's consistency and reliability. And that really comes down, at least in the narrative I have in my head, or what we believe is in a type of system. So there's a great book. It's called The Four Disciplines of Execution, and they talk about the four important components of a cadence. And one is focus on the wildly important. The second is having lead measures. In other words, being able to measure each step along the way. Have a scoreboard, a visible scoreboard. And then last but not least is a cadence of accountability and a rhythm. So hopefully that answers the question on what is a cadence and an organizational plan.
Great. Thank you so much. I know you and I have spent a lot of time talking about this, which is, leaders go first. When you talk about setting standards of high performance, when you talk about creating a cadence of accountability, it starts with you, right? It starts with your own personal cadence. And so I'm curious, before we talk about how do you build this with your team, what advice do you have about building your own personal leadership cadence?
Well, as a Marine infantry officer, We were always taught, follow me. Those are powerful words that have been handed on from generation to generation. So I always tell my team, don't believe in absolutes, including this one. But I think there are three absolutes in leadership. One is leadership by example. The other is others before self. And then the third is one person, he or she can make a difference as a leader. So when you start with an organizational cadence, thought is, what's your cadence, right? And when you look at it, a dead battery is not good to anyone, and no one's going to follow Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh. So when you got to have some energy and edge. So here's some of the things that I would recommend in a personal cadence. The first is ask yourself the question, am I planned? Right? So do I have an on and off time? Because I know there's leaders out there, and I was one of them. Oh, I can drive through. I don't need sleep. I can power through it. But there's studies against that. So our brains do need time to re-energize. So what's your on-off time? Okay. MIT. What's the most important thing? So you want to leverage Pareto's principle, the 20-80 rule. When you start your day, do you know what you have to accomplish? That's your MIT, and it's personal and professional. The other thing is time blocked. So there's a law out there, it's called Parkinson's law, where work expands into the time allotted. You have to time block. Time block your personal stuff, time block your professional, right? And then also you can use technology for reoccurrence in that planning, and then also plan inside the plan. If I have time blocked off to work on a project, deep work, like Cal Newport will talk about, deep work, do you have that plan set up? The other thing is, I've learned, especially over the pandemic, is the power of a routine. And I know, we are all in different seasons of life. I remember, it just seems like yesterday, which I'd do anything to go back to those days of having 3 small children hanging on you and you're working through things, right? So what is your routine? It could be as simple as, like Admiral McRaven says, make your bed, then get in motion, do some push-ups, sit-ups, maybe take a walk, meditation or a journaling. And then also at the end, focusing in on the MIT. So as a leader, my recommendation is, if it's going to be, it starts with you, and it goes back to the leadership philosophy of the Marine Corps: follow me.
Very nice. Thank you so much. So if you're just tuning in, we're here with Virg Palumbo. He is president at Kforce, and he is also a former Marine. And we're talking about creating an operating cadence. And so if you have a question for Virg, we would love to hear, or a question from maybe you've heard from a friend for Virg. Okay, so as we move on here, I'd like to ask you, one of the things I have been very impressed with is you have taken the concept of the most important thing that we have been training through the leadership development work over the last year or so that we've been doing with Kforce. And what I think has been really nice is watching how you create an operating cadence that for your team. So how it's very consistent. It's consistent at a monthly basis. It's consistent at a weekly basis. It's consistent at a daily basis. You're incorporating people. You're including them in the planning process and the execution process. So anything you want to share about how do you build an operating cadence for your team?
Okay. Well, thank you. And what I would say is, this is a continual learning process. So it's not, I'm going to put a cadence down and then it's going to be perfect, right? So just talking about real quick, I'll give a very vanilla approach, and hopefully it'll apply to all the listeners. For those that are in Kforce, you'll say, oh, that makes sense. That's what we're doing here. So really it starts with a couple basic principles. The first is business is first. When you build a cadence, business is first. And what does that mean? Not only core business, but your personal life. You can't be effective if something's screwed up in your family, or you're skipping an appointment for a child and to be in the meeting. So, and then also too, if the customer's calling, or candidate or client, or I'm sorry, the customer's calling, both candidate or client in our world, then we should be focused in on it. That's the essence of our business. The second thing that I would say is just a general principle is effectiveness and efficiency. Okay, constantly evaluating your effectiveness and your efficiency. The other part is grace. And I remember in a conversation with Yvonne Kroll, one of our vice presidents, she said, at some point, you got to give yourself organizational grace and personal grace. Because as you go through this, just like showing up with confidence and humility, you have to give yourself grace that, hey, maybe we need to adjust this, or what I thought at this time is really not accurate. And then the last that hit me this morning, more is not better, better is better. And I remember General Jones saying that like yesterday, and it wasn't. More is not better, better is better. So being able to channel that communication and being able to synthesize it, and you can't go over 45, the most 45 important points, okay? Where do I channel that? So more is not better, better is better. So here's just some thoughts. Maybe they will generally apply to the audiences, hopefully the millions listening, okay? So let's just start building up daily. Okay, so we'll go daily, weekly, monthly. Daily. Some thoughts would be, do you have a stand to meeting? Do you have a stand down meeting? Right? So you start the morning as a team, you end as a team. And it could be quick updates or what have you. It should follow some type of consistent agenda. And then also I would strongly recommend for the newer associates being in a distributed environment or a decentralized environment, because onboarding is always an issue, is setting aside time, which I used to call the breakfast club, that you would set aside with a new associate, hey, what's your concern? And he or she can bring up their concern, and you can help with the onboarding and integrating them into the team. So that would be what I would look at daily. Some of the general rules are, okay, if we have a half-hour meeting, keep it to 25 minutes. If you have an hour meeting, keep that to, I personally like 45 minutes. I don't like hour meetings because our attention span goes at 45 minutes. But the bottom line is keep that to 40 and 50. And I don't believe in Lombardi time anymore, where you got to show up 10 minutes early for your meeting. Just be on time, be prepared, okay, be engaged. So that would be like a daily recommendation, just very generic. Weekly, okay, now you set up a weekly cadence. Would recommend scorecard at the beginning of the week, looking at the scorecard, okay, of your previous week. Where are we? And having the whole team look at that. Also, what is the direction for the week? You also have your one-on-ones, where you should have consistent one-on-ones depending on your span of control. At the end of the week, you would have a weekly wrap. Hey, here's where we're at. Okay, here's what we're looking for the next week. Also, okay, if you have a bigger scope, we have our directs meet. We call it the Security Council, but it's a direct where we have open dialogue and there's communication back and forth. And this is something that we leverage. It's a support meeting where every support entity, okay, in Kforce, in our region, we call it the Big Ten, will be there, and they will brief whatever, okay, is coming down the pike. The beautiful thing about that is communication's two ways. It can't be transmit only. So what's happening is the support team is listening to our leadership talk about their business issues and some of the initiatives, and they're feeding it back up into the corporation. So now you have one team, one fight. So that's kind of weekly. Here's some other things just to throw out generically. You can have a possible in-house week or day during your week. So for us, when we were in the office, we had everyone in on Wednesdays, unless, once again, business first or something took you away. You could have a deep work day. Google does 20% of their work time is just focused in on deep work. You could do a no meeting day, where certain divisions inside the region will have no meetings, right? It's all external focus. Or you have a no video day. I think Microsoft just did that for a Friday. For monthly, does that make sense, Karen? For like
absolutely.
Okay. So, and once again, this is just generic, so hopefully it can help everybody that's listening. And then monthly, you look at, okay, what is your monthly MIT? So from a Big Ten division, what we do is we sit down inside our Security Council and then vet our leadership, okay, with our leadership. Hey, here's our MIT for this month, which feeds into our or annual MIT.
So let me
And
just
then,
stop you there in case somebody's
okay,
listening and doesn't know what an MIT is. So MIT is your most important thing, right? And so what Virg is talking about here is setting his strategic, most important thing priorities for the month. Okay, just give a little context there.
So what happens is that gets alignment from so I'll just talk personally from ourselves. Our alignment, okay, or at least the narrative I have on my head, okay, is we have alignment as a division. Then underneath there's 4 regions. So, when Julie, Dan, Brock, and BK then look at those, okay, they could say, okay, yep, we see we're aligned. They may emphasize something different, okay, so they have a little bit of a different agenda, but it's still aligned. So, for instance, if we're core hiring, we're not going to have another division saying they're laying off, right, or something like to that effect. So there's alignment, and there's a little bit of a difference in an agenda. So
okay, so let me just stop you there. So what you're saying here is you've got your strategic most important things, and then you've got your direct reports. Now they're going to have their most important things, but there's got to be alignment, right? It has to make sense, but it might be there's nuances, and what's really important and how they're playing those things out may vary by region or priorities or what they've got going on. Maybe they've got a lot of new folks on their team, so they have to do something a little bit different.
Exactly, and then we have alignment, and we're all moving in the same direction. So like Kai has, or Kai Mitchell, our COO, has her North Star, and we're all moving towards the North Star, and so there's that general organizational alignment. Going to monthly, okay, building off the MITs, you could also have skip levels up and down, which instead of just working with the reports. Also, I think training, it should be like a tapestry weaving in to the monthly. Whatever type of training, it could be product training, it could be individual training, it could be personal training. So that should be woven to the tapestry. And then, and then quarterly and yearly, those build out, pretty much on its own. What's your quarterly plan? What are we looking at, for annual training, those types of things, and that fits in. And we look at turbulence mapping. So myself and Serena Harney, we are always, that's the ops chief. We're always looking out of 90 days of what's coming down the pike, so we can be efficient and effective. Going back to our principle. And here's the one thing I would say: is you build out your cadence. Experience is not the teacher. It's not. When people say, "Oh, you need experience," no, it's reflection on your experience. Mm-hmm. So if you reflect and we're talking as a group, and they're like, "Hey, is this effective? Is this efficient?" Then you're learning and you're fine tuning your cadence. So hopefully that answers just how to set up a generic framework of a cadence: daily, weekly, monthly.
Very nice. It's interesting. Scott is saying, I'll never forget Virg doing personal finance training for our team. And Scott, I was very impressed by that too, because Virg, that was all about you caring for people as whole people, right? And helping them be successful in their lives. So I thought thank you, Scott, for weighing in on that.
Thanks, Scott. I haven't talked to you in a while.
So if you have a question for Virg, let's please chat it in. I do want to go, Virg, to David's question, where he's saying, asking for many friends, how do you maintain a successful cadence when confronted with the unexpected fire drills, opportunities for the need, seize the moment, right? What would you say there? What do you do when the unexpected happens?
Well, a couple things. Okay, so first off is semper gumby. Okay, it was something we say in the Marine Corps: always flexible. We have a cadence, and the world is constantly changing around us. Was the old saying: no person steps in the same river twice. So the world's constantly changing around us. So the first thing, okay, as a leader, I would hope that every teammate feels we trust you. Make the decision. You're empowered. And so if chaos comes in, customer calls, right? Candidate calls, or kid gets sick, make the right call. It's okay. And if you don't make the right call, no one's going to be punished, because you're not going undefeated in life. You're not going to go undefeated in business. There are going to be mistakes made. So, so what I would say is chaos comes in, and you've got to be flexible, right? I would hope, this is just my hope, that anyone that I've ever worked with has always felt, Virg trusts us, the leadership trusts you, make the right call. As a leader, I believe in trust-based tactics. I mean, I know you and David had met Mike Etour. It is about, trust-based tactics. We trust you. We want you to make those right decisions. And if you make a mistake, it's okay. And we go back to one of the guiding principles: business is first, right? Take care of the customer, take care of your family. And if you can't be in a meeting and you get pulled away, it's okay, because we'll just circle back. I mean, it's a cadence, a rhythm. It's not just a one time. This is the most. It's not like I got to go to listen to Lincoln talk at the Gettysburg Address. You're only going to get one shot at that, okay? But here, we're communicating, and it's a battle rhythm, and so hopefully that answers the question.
It does.
David.
I'm gonna expand it at one level deeper. So,
Okay.
say you've got, say you are a leader who you get it for yourself. You've got a personal operating cadence. You're organized. You've got a supervisor, or a team lead who's wrestling with it. So you trust them, but they're dealing with things as they hit the windshield, right? And so we've all had people working with us that have that challenge, right? So it's like they're doing whatever comes up, and everything feels like a crisis, and they're having trouble really focusing on what the most important thing is. What advice would you have? How do you develop and teach that skill for somebody who's wrestling with that?
Well, I always start with, what are you seeing and what are you feeling? So I would ask that question: what are you seeing and what are you feeling? And then you walk through that of what they're seeing and feeling, and then hopefully then you're able to start thinking of a tactical process, right? So for instance, I define crisis as anything that's worse than 9/11. Okay, that to me is a national crisis, and then everything below we can work through. And I ask, is everyone okay? Yes. Everyone's breathing. Yep. Okay, so let's work through this. And then what I try to do with the new leader is I introduce what they call, it's called the Boyd cycle, BOYD. That's my Western PA accent. So it's the Boyd cycle. You observe, you orient, you decide, you act. And it's a circular, right? So what did you observe? How did you orient? What was your micro decision? You don't have to make massive decisions. Let's make little incremental decisions. And then you take your action, and then you repeat, right? Observe, orient, decide, act. The other thing is, when things happen, okay, calm is contagious. You don't need to run around, right? Like a chicken with its head cut off. Okay, calm is contagious. And you go back to what the original reason for a leader is protection. If the leader, he or she's losing their calm, okay, and they're losing emotional bubble, right, and then it's gonna go right through the organization, right? Fear will go through the ranks more than anything else, and also at the same time being calm and courageous, right, and being forthright will go through the organization. So.
Yeah, it's funny that you're saying that. As you're talking about, I'm thinking about this boss I had. I hate to say this, 25 years ago, a long time ago, but she would call me and she would be like, oh, every time it was like, oh, aren't you just spinning? This is so crazy. This is so crazy. And I'm like, well, it wasn't crazy until you called, and she would just get everyone on the team so riled up. And then that adrenaline goes. And it was unnecessary, and it was radically unproductive. And I just remember feeling, you learn as much from a bad boss as you do from a good boss. And I just remember saying, that's not helping anybody. Please, I've got to work on, and calm doesn't come naturally to me. I'm more high strung. So, but, I think that that's something that really is, as you mature as a leader, understanding that you can be urgent and act with a sense of urgency without being frantic. And I think that is so vital for leaders.
Well, I mean, fast is smooth, right?
Yeah.
So if when you look at the battle rhythm, okay, and you have a decision-making process and you can communicate, okay, then you can be smooth through it. I think it's Brian Knight has an equation, and you'll see it in my emails that E plus R equals O. The event you can't control, right? It's outside, but we can control our response, and responses are in two ways: above the line, below the line. Above the line is noble, it has intention, okay, it's calm. Below the line is blame, complain, defend, and then that will equal the outcome. And so, if a crisis hits as a leader, okay, and I, I ask a few quick questions like, "Is everyone okay?" Yep. Okay, all the blood's in the good guys. We're good. Okay, so let's walk through this, right? And if everyone's safe, then we can determine the outcome by our response. And so anyway, that's how I would handle it with a new leader, or at least I think I have handled it with new leaders, and that's how it was handled with me. As a young lieutenant and as a young business leader, and I think of my mentors that have helped me along the way, and that's how they coached me.
I love it. So, Virg, I know that we're having a pre-game show conversation about the 6 concepts that you can't lead without, that we've been introducing and really working with in our leadership development work with Kforce. I'd love to hear your reflections on those. Like, how do those play out for you and the work that you do as you're building an operating cadence?
Well, it's funny. We were talking about this as I was getting prepared for this, and hopefully I've been able to add value to those that are listening. When you look at building a great cadence, okay, it does start with confidence and humility, right? You show up, hey, I think, as a new leader, I think this is going to work. It's been based off of studies, okay, and we're going to work together on this. Then you focus in on the results, right? The results in relationships. Am I getting the business results? And are my people happy, right? So, and I go back to what I was taught a long time ago about making sure everyone feels valued, accepted, understood, loved, and trusted. And that's how your organization should be. Communicate consistently. And going back to what General Jones said, more is not better, better is better. You want to constantly check for understanding and see, hey, is this making sense? And then, scheduling the finish. And that's the other thing with cadence. If you're going to set up a cadence, use the technology, use the reoccurring the reoccurring meetings on Outlook or Google, and then just set them indefinitely. And then, you schedule that finish, okay, that you're constantly, everything is scheduled. And then finally, you're sitting back and using the MIT to guide you. So then, just hitting on some points I hit earlier, you use Pareto's principle, the 20-80 rule. And then also you're using Parkinson's law because, work expands into the time allotted. So hopefully that answered the question, Karen.
Very, very good. So as we close here, what are some final tips or advice that you have for our listeners today?
Well, first off, thank you for all those that were listening, and thank you for having me. Hopefully there was some value added. There's not many Virg Palumbos on LinkedIn, so if I can help in any way, we're all in this together in the infinite game. Please don't hesitate to send me an email, or you can call me. Okay, my phone number's out there. I have a 24-hour rule. If I don't get back to you in 24 hours, call me again. And it's just been an honor to be here and be a part of this great experience. And then I know we have a lot of Kforces out there, and I just wanted to say thank you. It has been an honor to serve you for 21 years, and I look forward to the future. And thanks for being here. That's all I have to say.
Thank you so much, Virg. You've been very, very helpful and absolutely a delight to talk with you. So thank you so much to all of our listeners, and I hope you will join us next time on Asking for a Friend.
Thank you.